my first test drive, there was some vibration coming from the frontaxle. It was most noticeable when the speed got above 90 km per hour. And I suspected that it may be some unbalanced drive shaft or something else. The first thing that I noticed was some broken cvjoint boots. Both sides had some tears in them, so I was suspecting maybe some sand or debris got inside them. I very often use this tool to compress the brake caliper, so it's easier to take it off. At least the last owner had installed new brake pads. Also, the inner tie rod and boots were torn. Wow. For €100, Mercedes sells a special socket for this nut, but I think Chisel and Hammer will do the same thing. I think this part is called the bump stop. If you happen to bottom out the front suspension. I had to leave the front hoop holder hanging there because it has an ABS sensor on it and I don't want to cut the wire. The drive shaft was connected with 6 bolts, so I took them off now. The drive shaft ends are held with a locking ring. I deassembled the cvjoint to see how worn out it was. Actually, it looks pretty good. But I did buy a new one, but I did a small mistake. The new one that I got did not have a ABS sensor ring. So, because they were same size, I decided to take the internals from the new one. Because the front drive's axle seal was leaking, I had to pull out the axle. I used the old inner CV joint and connect a chain on it. So I was thinking to use a slide hammer to pull it out. And it did work. They are held there with some locking rings. And in goes the new seal. The front disc had some rust buildup in the inside, so I used a nail gun to remove it. And some copper spray on the connection point, so it won't seize up. I think the French was like 41 millimeters. Guess the boot was broken, some water has gone into the steering rack and built some rust. I took some measurements from the tie rod ends so I can put them back in the same position. And when the right side was complete, it was time to do the same on the left side. It was pretty much the same work, but only the drive axle was a bit longer as it was on the right side. Here you see the left drive axle. The left side boots were totally torn, so it was a good idea to change them. Here I'm taking off the drive shaft shield. And I also replaced the boot on the left tie rod. And here I have everything back together. And then I took the van on the channel. Because here we have some more leaks to fix. This is the transfer case fill block. And from there I get the oil out. And here are the front drive units train and fill block. The shafts are usually balanced, so it's smart to do some markings because you want to put them back in the same position. So I started with the front drive shaft. They felt kinda notchy and stiff. The axle hoops were held with a 12-point nut. Luckily I have a special socket for that. car was flexing too much, so it's better to use some power tools. I also marked the hoop and the axle, so I remember to put it back in the same position. Looks like it has leaked for some time. I noticed that if I want to change the seal, I have to take off this brace. Okay. Because I needed to turn the rear axle, I had to lift up one wheel. And then I noticed that it had some factory markings on the axles. So I had done some markings before I took them off, and each axle were in different position. So this may be a big reason why I had some vibrations, because none of the axle were in the right spot. To take off the front axle's hoop on the transfer case, I had to engage the four-wheel drive. And now it was a good idea to drain the oil from it. In the service manual it was marked that the oil was changed 1 year ago, so it looks pretty clean. This time I'm going to match the markings on the drive axles. And now I'm putting the oil back to the transfer case. I add the chain there just in case if I have to hold the rear drive axle up, but didn't need. And now I'm draining the front axle's oil. It looked really dirty. It was a good idea to change it. And this is the oil that Mercedes dealer recommended to use. And the front axle takes about 1.2 liters. Just fill it till it starts to drip out, so you know it's the right level. And the next day I took it for a test drive, and luckily all the vibrations were gone, so I think the problem was in the drive axles.